Max Nation, I'm Unger to the Max coming at you with the final episode of the SportsRoom Talk Show for 2022. Don't worry, the SportsRoom Talk Show isn't going anywhere. It will continue into 2023. The goal remains the same, do a video collaboration for every game on the Browns schedule, even though I failed that mission yet again this year. But that point aside, to help me close out 2022, I brought in the host of Brandon's World. He is the general manager and podcaster for All Things Cavalier over at Believe One Media. He is my editor, so a lot of the articles you see, this guy helps me. Brandon Lewis, welcome in.
Josh, thank you, and to everyone listening to this live on YouTube right now. I apologize for seeing F my face. For some reason, StreamYard is not as good as Zoom, in my opinion, when it comes to virtual backgrounds. But I'm excited. You can see down below by my name. You can make sure to follow me on Twitter at @BrandonWillis_7 and the show at Rio_BWorld. Josh, man, I'm excited. Let's talk all things sports.
Yes, which Brandon, you and I have been talking about getting you into the sports room for a while because I've been on your show twice and I felt like I needed to return the favor. We have been trying for a while to find the right timing, and finally, we were able to get it to work out. But before we continue, if you haven't already, make sure you hit that like button like a UFC fighter. Or wait, I screwed that up. Let me try again. Strike that, reverse it. Shout out to Willy Wonka. Take two. Make sure you hit that subscribe button with the skull-crushing finale, courtesy of The Miz. Then make sure you punch that like button like a UFC fighter. And then hit that notification bell with the paradigm shift, courtesy of John Moxley. There you go. Okay, now that bit is out of the way. So, the Cleveland Browns. They were officially eliminated last week, courtesy of their 17-10 loss to the New Orleans Saints. Although I personally eliminated them after they lost to the Dolphins and Bills earlier this season, but whatever. So now they head to Washington to take on the Commanders. So let me ask you this, Brandon. Since the Browns are eliminated, why should Browns fans still tune in for this game?
Josh, I'm going to tell you why. And it's because if you listened, or I should say, if you checked out my Twitter, if you go to @Real_BWorld, the Browns World Twitter, as a part of my Week 17 money line picks and best bets, which, Josh, if you don't know, I am huge in a sports betting, and I pick 5 games every single week during the NFL season that I call my best bets. Obviously, we haven't been able to bet yet in Ohio. We'll be able to do so tomorrow. But I have kept track of the bets that I would have made if betting would have been legal in Ohio. And as a part of my best bets tomorrow, I am taking the Browns plus 2.5 because I think the Browns are going to knock off the Washington Commanders. And for one simple reason. And that simple reason is because of who is starting at quarterback for the Washington Commanders. Somebody who I obviously know very well after he was drafted number 2 overall in the 2016 NFL draft by my Philadelphia Eagles, Carson Wentz. I'm here to say that Jadeveon Clowney used to be a member of the Seattle Seahawks when this happened, now a member of the Cleveland Browns. When he hit Carson Wentz back in that 2019 season, it would have been 2020, in the wild card game when the Eagles were taking on the Seahawks, gave Carson Wentz a concussion. Carson Wentz has never been the same quarterback. Something is up with him mentally. I don't know. You could speculate what's going on, but I still don't believe he's been the same quarterback since that it. And I don't know why Ron Rivera would go back to him. He holds the ball in the pocket too long. He doesn't make quick, decisive reads. I think benching Taylor Heineke was the wrong move, especially for Washington trying to get to the postseason. I also think the Browns, who are a bad run defense, I do think they actually do match up well with Washington because of the fact that the Browns also run a very run-heavy scheme. Believe it or not, Washington is about middle of the pack in run defense. I think you're going to see a lot of running in this game. I think the Browns control the clock. I think it's a very ugly defensive-like battle. Deshaun Watson will make a couple key plays. I think the defense actually makes a key play. I really want to see if you know a player that I've criticized for such a long time, number 95, Myles Garrett, who was benched last week for reportedly, I guess, not telling the team he was sick or something like that. I've had my criticisms of Garrett, in the past about his play. This is a big game, though, for the Browns because they don't have a first round pick next year. That's going to the Houston Texans. They really have, no incentive to lose, if you will. They need to go out, they need to play well because I don't care. I know a lot of people are saying it's unfair to fire Stefanski, because he hasn't had a full offseason with Deshaun Watson. But I like teams going into next year with positive momentum. And believe it or not, if you're a bad football team not going to the postseason, but you can gain momentum winning these last two games of the season, which are both winnable games. I'm not saying they're going to win them both, but they're both winnable games. That can catapult you into a legitimate championship contender. Look no further than the Philadelphia Eagles in 2016. They were 5-9. They won their last two games, finished the year 7-9, and then of course 2017 ended with the Lombardi Trophy.
Yes, which thank you again for taking down the evil empire that year. Anytime I see an Eagles fan, I always thank them for beating the Patriots in Super Bowl 52.
That game, I mean, Josh, if you take a look back, that game was the best Super Bowl we've had in the last 4 or 5 years.
Oh, easily.
That game was obviously incredible, and that team was incredible. But I've been telling people the foundation, believe it or not, was built in 2016. Doug Peterson was a rookie head coach. I was not totally sure about Doug Peterson going into his first year, and he really struggled. And believe it or not, I don't know if many people know this story or not. Doug Peterson was about to get fired after his first year in Philadelphia. There was major debate about Frank Reich potentially becoming the head coach, and Jim Schwartz, who was on the set as the DC, becoming the head coach. Frank Reich was the one that said, don't fire Doug Peterson. It's not his fault. And boom, what happens next year? So it just goes to show, again, similar situation here. Kevin Stefanski is on the hot seat. For me, as you know, he's been on the hot seat ever since the end of the 2021 season. Last year, I think the Browns are really running an outdated scheme offensively. I mentioned that a multitude of times. I want to see, Josh, a lot of Nick Chubb tomorrow. I want to see a lot of 24. I want to see a lot of Kareem Hunt. I want to see a lot of play action. That is what the Browns are built on. That is how you get after Washington. The way Washington's going to win this game is the same way they beat Philadelphia, which is going to be to run the football, control the clock, convert third downs. And like I said, and I loved Carson Wentz. I was the biggest Carson Wentz defender, even when he went to Indianapolis. Didn't think his reign at the end of Philadelphia was necessarily his fault. I didn't even think he played that bad in Indy last year. But for some reason, he holds on to the ball too long. He doesn't make decisive reads, and that will go in the favor of the Browns, I believe.
Okay. So I hear everything you're saying, and I want to get back, and I'll touch on the Doug Peterson point a little bit later. But for me, I have mixed feelings about tomorrow's game because on one hand, yes, I want the Browns to win since, like you said, they don't control their first round pick. Like you said, it belongs to Houston as a result of the Deshaun Watson trade. So if the Browns continue to win, then that pick goes lower and lower into the draft. Not that that would be a bad thing or a good thing. It's just an observation type of thing. But here's the other part of the equation. The Green Bay Packers, they need to win their two remaining games against Minnesota and Detroit. Both games are in Lambeau. And they would need either
One of Washington or the Giants to lose, correct? Yeah.
Yeah, they would need Washington to either lose this week against Cleveland or lose next week against the Dallas Cowboys. Or they would need the Giants to lose both of their remaining games, I believe, something like that. So, yes, I want the Browns to win, but at the same time, I don't want Green Bay to have the opportunity to get into the playoffs because I just really don't like the Packers.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this then, though, Josh, because I'm going to be honest with you. The Browns should not care about that scenario. I
And
understand
I give
that
you that one.
that is a fan scenario. And this is what I always say about us in the media, right? Sometimes it's really hard because sometimes we root for what we hope will happen. But you always have to remember, like, teams don't care about your fantasy team. Teams don't care about different scenarios. Like, as much as we want it to happen, teams don't care about that. And I also think, from a consumer standpoint, like, Aaron Rodgers in the playoffs, regardless of what you think of him and his ayahuasca and his vaccine status, like, we all know Rodgers has been pretty naughty, if you will say, in the holiday season here. But wouldn't it? I mean, this NFL season has been so crazy. We all thought Green Bay was 3-8, and I've criticized Rodgers for pretty much being the reason why Devontae Adams is now in Las Vegas. But man, wouldn't that be something if Green Bay made the postseason? I know you don't want to see it, but I mean, I would. You're free. What were they? 3-7, 3-8. The bad loss at Tennessee on Thursday night. I thought their season was over, and it just goes to show, like, in the NFC, it feels like either Green Bay is going to make it over the first time in NFL history, which is why I did not like the 17-game expansion. It's why I did not like the playoff expansion, because this scenario was going to happen. But for the first time in the history of the NFL, the entire NFC East, who everybody made fun of in 2020 and called it the NFC East, and I said they're going to be good in a couple years. Like, bad teams get better. That's just how the NFL works.
Right.
The NFC East, everybody forgets in the middle of the 2010s, the NFC East was actually a really good division. I mean, the Giants snuck in and won 2 Super Bowls. Obviously, Washington's been a little bit down, but Philly and Dallas, even though they haven't made the playoffs or they made the playoffs, they're still very competitive. Like, the NFC East is one of the best divisions in football. I never got why people were making it the laughing stock, to be honest with you. It's just a very competitive football division.
It's because of how pathetic the division was. Like,
but you look at that year, right? The Giants. We all knew the Giants were going to be bad. The Giants have been bad a long time. Philly was the real surprise, and that was really because of, again, everything that was going on with Carson Wentz behind the scenes.
sure.
Dallas. The reason with Dallas was Dak got hurt. You remember that? That was the year that Dak, unfortunately, that brutal leg injury against the Giants that year. And Washington was a great story with Alex Smith, but they weren't a great team. Going into that year, Ron Rivera, new head coach in the division. Joe Judge, new head coach in the division. Mike McCarthy, new head coach in the division. So the division was uncharacteristically bad. Even in 2019, it was bad. That's because the Giants and Commanders didn't have quarterbacks, and they still don't have quarterbacks. But the coaching is better, and the football is getting better. And again, in the NFL, you can turn things around quick. It's why, back to the Browns. There's optimism for next year. Now, whether here's my issue though, is if you keep Stefanski, and I understand the argument and all that. Deshaun Watson loves him. He didn't get a fair offseason, whatever you will. He won 2020 Coach of the Year. I get all of it. But if the Browns struggle out of the gate to begin next year, I said last year I thought Doug Peterson was the best head coach available. I thought he's better than Kevin Stefanski. I would have fired Stefanski and got Doug Peterson right there. I think Frank Reich is a great head coach that I would try to snag right now. I think, Shane Steichen, the Eagles OC, is out there. Ben Johnson, the Lions OC.
Eric Bieniemy.
Matt Nagy, who's in Kansas City as well, is out there, and I think he deserves another shot without Mitch Trubisky as his quarterback.
You saw what Matt Nagy did in Chicago, right?
Did you see who his quarterback was? His quarterback was Mitch Trubisky. He got Mitch Trubisky 12-4 at a whole playoff game. Like, do you see the roster Chicago's working with? By the way, they go with a defensive coach, and Matt Eberflus didn't understand that at all. But I mean, Matt Nagy is, to me, a very smart guy. Came from the Andy Reid tree. Eric Bieniemy as well. Like, there are smart offensive minds in this league that are going to get a head coaching job. And again, Kevin Stefanski is an offensive mind. Why is this offense broken? Don't give me the stats. They're this in big plays and yada, yada, yada. Where are they in scoring? They're like middle of the pack. I think it was near the bottom. I can look it up in scoring. They don't put up a lot of points, especially after the first drive, Josh.
It's interesting that you're talking about all the stats and stuff. while the stats are important to me, and sure, they help strengthen your argument, I go by more of what I see on the field and like how the team looks, because that's just kind of more how I operate. Like I said though, I do like look at the stats and I will utilize them in my argument, but for me, the biggest problem with the Browns is that they are so run dependent. Like if they can't get their run game going, they can't do anything offensively.
Yep, and as I have told you, and we've talked about this a lot, I think upgrading the receiving core is a must. Uh,
A
I,
hundred
I
percent.
and I do believe like the NFL is a 2022 about 2023. Like I get running the football is up. I understand that because a lot of defenses are playing the two-eye shell, trying to guard against the deep pass. The run game is going to be open, but you still need to have your Josh Allen, your Patrick Mahomes, your Joe Burrow. Some people want to put Deshaun Watson in that category of hey, go out and make plays, and those guys can do it with very good receivers. But you look at Cincinnati. They had a good receiving core for years, and Tyler Boyd and AJ Green and those guys. They go out and get T. Higgins, but the big difference maker is obviously Jamar Chase. And Buffalo went out, they got Stephon Diggs. Philadelphia went out, they got AJ Brown. The Browns, Amari Cooper, as I've always said, is a nice wide receiver. I think he'd be the best number 2 receiver in the NFL if you can go find him a number 1. There's probably only going to be one available this year, which I think is going to be potentially Devontae Adams. The issue is, once again, the Browns do not have a ton of draft capital or players to give up. So in order to get another receiver, you're going to have to make sure that Amari Cooper is dependable. Amari Cooper is going to have to step up, but you're going to have to go because I don't really think you can do it in free agency. I think you're going to have to go in the draft, your 3rd, your 4th round, which, by the way, David Bell, miss. Anthony Schwartz, miss. So that is a
Corey
knock on
Coleman,
Andrew Berry.
miss.
Well, no, I'm just talking about the last 2 drafts, right? Schwartz and Bell. David Bell is a maybe. You want to see David Bell step up, but he's looking like a miss right now. But I also want to say this. It's very easy to miss on a couple of guys and go back and hit a home run if you find the right player. Obviously, in Philadelphia, J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, terrible wide receiver. Jalen Reagor, the worst fucking wide receiver I've ever seen in my entire life. Miss.
You had Justin Jefferson right there for the taking.
Now we have Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown. So again, we made up for it. Jalen Reagor, don't even get me started about that terrible pick. But again, Philadelphia moved on after a couple of years. They said Reagor's not a good wide receiver. I am wondering if the Browns, can the Browns just go out at whatever pick they have, 2nd, 3rd round? I don't really know at the top of my head. Can you draft a receiver and just hope he's good and say, let's move on from Schwartz? Like, stop the experiment. He's not good.
Yeah. When we did draft Anthony Schwartz, I won't say I had high hopes for him, but I thought he could develop into like maybe not Tyreek Hill, because Tyreek Hill's in a different class. I get it. But like Schwartz is kind of similar to Tyreek in that they're both kind of
He is in the fact
guys.
that he's a guy, yes, that you can stretch the field with. And I thought, take a look at Baker. He obviously had a really good 2020. And I thought, well, the pressure of Odell Beckham was putting too much pressure on him, but you could see how he did with Jarvis Landry, Rashard Higgins, and Njoku. I forget who the other targets were, but Baker obviously played very well that year. And I thought what the Browns were missing was that dimensional piece that Schwartz could take you over the top. But the bottom line is, Josh, and I will stick to this forever. I don't care what speed you have. Speed is great, right? If you cannot separate from man coverage in the National Football League, you will not belong because teams are starting to play man coverage. If you cannot consistently beat man coverage in the NFL, you are not going to win football games.
Oh, you're 100% right. Like, I think that's a huge reason why the Eagles are having the success they are, because you got Devontae Smith, who's more of the playmaker, if you will. He's a little bit of a stretch the field guy. I know he's a great route runner, but he can stretch the field a little bit. And But then on the opposite side, you have AJ Brown, who's like, I can just throw it up anywhere and he'll go and get it.
They also have a great speed guy in Quez Watkins in the slot who's a little bit inconsistent with his hands, but when he's on, he can flat out fly. He's the fastest receiver on their team. He's a sure-handed fourth wide receiver, a great blocker in Zach Pascal. But what makes Philadelphia? What makes Cincinnati? What makes Buffalo? Even Dallas to an extent. These explosive offenses is
Miami
not only
too.
Miami at points, if Tua is accurate and they get their run game going, not only do they have, the ability to throw for 300, 350, 400 yards, but they have the ability to run on you as well. You can't stack the box and you can't play pass coverage. The Browns right now, for some freaking reason, and I don't understand why, I don't get why. If somebody can tell me why, and I'd like to hear it straight from the coach's mouth because he's the only one that can really tell you why in this situation. Why, when the run game is working, why when Nick Chubb or Kareem Hunt, who hasn't had that great of a season, but he's had his moments, why when the run game is working, why do they never, and I mean ever, go back to it?
I don't know. Like, here, perfect example. Last year against Green Bay, like, Baker Mayfield was throwing Christmas presents left and right to the Packers. But when we were running the ball, it was working. And yet, on that final drive, when we needed to score, was Nick Chubb on the field? I don't remember him being on the field in that final drive.
Josh, I mean, I don't get it. I've compared the Browns. You mentioned Green Bay a little bit. I've said, the Packers are the Browns of the NFC basically, and vice versa, where they both have two great running backs. They both run a similar, zone read, the Kyle Shanahan, the Mike Shanahan, the under center outside zone type West Coast scheme. And I don't get why. I understand you want to save Nick Chubb. You don't want him to take a beating. You have Kareem Hunt. But isn't that why you drafted Jerome Ford? Like, Ford never gets in the ball game. I am a big believer. Like, if you watch Philadelphia really this season, again, they're my favorite team. That's I point to them a lot. But we have three running backs. Miles Sanders over 1,000 yards, but we use Boston Scott. We use Kenneth Gainwell. Like, I don't understand why there's not more of a rotation at running back. Jerome Ford is a heavier back. He's not as good as Nick Chubb, obviously, but he can serve some purposes, especially if you don't want to use Chubb in those short yardage situations. Like, there's something about the Browns where, like, Stefanski, I feel like sometimes wants to prove he's the smartest person in the room. And I will tell you this, and Josh, I've told people this forever and ever and ever. And I believe this to be true. Just know this. I don't care if you are the smartest person in the world at your company or whatever. Your mindset has to be, there are people richer than me. There are people poorer than me. There are people smarter than me. There are people dumber than me, for a lack of a better term. Let me just stay in my role. Let me do what I do. Quick story. Last season on my podcast, Josh, I made an analogy because do you remember last year there was a lot of talk about, could Stefanski give up the play calling to Alex Van Pelt, the offensive coordinator? And I made the analogy and I said, well, here's the problem with that. Play calling to me is like a restaurant menu, right? If I give you a restaurant menu, like if we go to a burger place, let's say, you may have a rare burger. I may have a medium rare burger. You may have American cheese. I may have Swiss cheese. I'm just giving you an example. Well,
sure.
The menu though is still the same. The meat part of it is still the same, right? You're either gonna have a good burger or you're gonna have a bad burger. The Browns play call sheet is still the same. I could think, AVP could think I want to pass on 3rd and 3. Stefanski may think, well, I want to run on 3rd and 3. Regardless, the scheme is still the same. And the players are still the same. And I don't know if just a play call change is going to be the difference between this team is amazing and they're not, because you can call the same plays over and over again. I don't really care who the play caller is per se, it's the scheme.
Oh yeah, it definitely is. I mean, think about it. Like, look at look at Jacksonville, for example. Like, we saw how crappy Trevor Lawrence was last year, and people are like, okay, wait, why did the Jaguars draft him number 1 overall again? Even though leading up to that draft, everyone knew the Jaguars were taking Trevor Lawrence number 1 overall. And look what happened. They got rid of Urban Meyer. They brought in Doug Peterson, and here they are. They're about to win the AFC South because
Now,
the Tennessee
Josh,
Titans are done.
can I talk about the AFC South, specifically Jacksonville, Tennessee, real quick?
Yeah.
Okay. So in Jacksonville, I obviously huge fan of Doug Peterson. I have Doug Peterson's book he wrote in my desk in my downstairs recording studio. I think Doug Peterson is obviously a phenomenal coach. I will love that man forever. That man deserves free Philly cheesesteaks for life. obviously, obviously in Philadelphia, like his time just ran out, and I was so pissed off. You could hear me saying every swear word in the book when Doug Peterson got fired from Philadelphia. I hated it. It broke my heart. Obviously, it was best for now for both sides to move on, and I absolutely adore Nick Sirianni and his coaching style. But when you win a Super Bowl, and you will learn this one day, as you already know with the 2016 NBA championship, you have connections to coaches, you have connections to players that you don't want to let go. And so I saw Jacksonville this year, and I thought they were going to win about 7 or 8 games. I thought it was going to be bumpy early. I thought Trevor was going to struggle early, which he did, and I was concerned because I was seeing people open and he wasn't hitting them. And I said, oh boy, that isn't good. But then you hear the stories about how brutal Urban Meyer was to these players. And Doug Peterson has been a perfect guy. You know, he's been a former NFL quarterback. He's been a head coach. Just wrap his arms around Trevor Lawrence, support the poor kid who was absolutely demoralized by Coach Meyer, give him confidence, and now you're seeing that team start to believe. It's the same thing what happened with Doug Peterson in 2016, as I mentioned, begin to build the culture, then go on and do that incredible run in 2017. Tennessee, I can't believe they even won 8 games this year. I thought they were going to win 6 or 7 games this year going into the year. I thought getting rid of A.J. Brown was the biggest mistake that GM ever made. Didn't understand it at all. Really, Malik Willis is a worse passer than I thought. I thought he'd be better in development at this point. But Tennessee, I said it. It's not that hard to beat Tennessee. From day one this year, I would have put 10 people in the box and told them, go ahead and throw on us, because they have absolutely no receivers. I did not like that kid Burks they drafted in the first round. I did not think he was a game-changing wide receiver. They need to change their offensive scheme. Maybe Malik Willis gets better as a passer. They can get more mobile. I thought that would open up the offense a little bit for Derrick Henry. Really hasn't. I don't know. A lot of people are in love with Mike Vrabel. I think he's a very good coach. I don't think he's the top echelon coach that a lot of people want to put him in. I think Tennessee's taking advantage of a bad division for years. Houston's obviously a mess, though. They play hard. Indianapolis, I have no idea what is going on with that franchise. I was wrong on that. I mean, I was wrong on Matt Ryan. I will be the first one to admit it. I whipped on the Colts this year. I thought they were going to win 11, 12 games. I thought Matt Ryan was going to be really stable. I thought they were going to run away with that division. And now Frank Reich, like I said, did not deserve to get fired at all. I don't know if he's going to take a year off. I don't know what he's going to do. But that man will have a Doug Peterson effect when he becomes head coach again, wherever he goes, because he is a damn good head coach. It is a shame he got fired. And again, the AFC South to me is a mess. I love the fact that Doug Peterson is going to win this division because he deserves it, because nobody expected him to. But that also doesn't mean Jacksonville is a very good football team, because they still have flaws, and, they could win a playoff game at home maybe, but I expect them to upgrade and be at least contenders for years to come. But that doesn't mean they really are a playoff team this year.
Right. By the way, my second all-time favorite player played for the Jaguars. Right there. I'm trying to get it right.
Maurice Jones-Drew, huh?
Yep. I've always been a huge MJD fan.
So the crazy thing, Josh, is like a lot of people love running backs, and to be honest with you, I was one of the first ones on this train about 7, 8 years ago. I
Mhm.
would not almost never. Nick Chubb is an exception. Dalvin Cook, McCaffrey, there's a couple exceptions. But giving a running back a second contract is very risky. I'm a very rotate running back guy. I like 4, 5, 6 running backs on my team, the way New England's done it for years, just because they
Sure.
get banged up and get hurt. And I know that we probably want to move out the Browns here, but I want to add one more Browns point.
No,
Okay.
you're fine.
I do want to have one more Browns point because it just came to my head.
Go ahead.
I don't understand, and this is why, and I think I've told you this or whatever before. I really do believe this. The Browns have had, if you want to count 2002, sure, they've had 2 playoff appearances in the last 2 decades, let's say, maybe almost 3.
Mhm.
Because of that, and some people like you, I believe, 2020 might have been the first season that you remember a Brown team ever making the postseason.
I mean, I was so young in
Exactly
2002 or whatever, I barely
2007,
remember it.
they should have made it, but they didn't, so we don't even count that because it's kind of an anomaly at this point.
Thanks,
Uh,
Indianapolis.
exactly. So they really only made the playoffs, let's say, like one time in your, one time in your actual lifetime that you remember actually watching, right? So because of that, Cleveland fans, and I truly believe this, whether you've been a fan for 50 years, 10 years, 20 years, whatever it may be, but
Mhm.
for 20 years, when you haven't seen a playoff team, you forget what a good football team and good football product actually looks like. And by the way, great football teams usually do not have 2 great running backs. They usually obviously have a great offensive line, great quarterback, great receiving core. So all this talk about, wow, we have a kicker and we have a running back. I'm like, great, you have 2 running backs. Who gives a rip? I don't really care about, well, we can't get rid of Kareem Hunt because we have 2 great running backs. Name me the last Super Bowl team that won that had 2 great running backs. Like, I don't get this obsession with we need to keep Chubb and Hunt. No, you don't. There's a reason why you drafted Jerome Ford. Like, I would have traded Hunt at the deadline for a third round pick. You don't need 2 great running backs. Felton, I really like. They never play Felton. Dearness Johnson, I really like. They never play Dearness Johnson. Ford's the same thing. Like, there is this thing about sometimes you have too many backs. There are good backs on this team that I personally believe would be starters or second down backs on other teams in this league. And it's like the Browns are holding on to Kareem Hunt for what? I get he can be a starter elsewhere, but you have way other holes you need to fill than focus on paying your backup running back.
Yeah, and I hear you. Which, by the way, my all-time favorite player is LaDainian Tomlinson
Okay.
with
No,
the
I mean,
Chargers.
what Danian was really special, right? With Sean McCoy, one of my favorites of all time. Jamal Charles, the list goes on and on. But what happened to these backs? We saw with Todd Gurley as well, a name that just came to my head. I thought it
Mhm.
was coming to Saquon Barkley this year until he's in a little bit of a renaissance, and I'm a little bit worried it's going to happen to Nick Chubb. And that's why they're trying to save Chubb. When you a running back, and I believe it or not, I think it's happened to Ezekiel Elliott. He hasn't been the same since Roy's rookie year. Running backs take a lot of punishment, right? And so
100%.
there's going to be a time. I don't know if it's next year. I've been saying about Derrick Henry. I think Derrick Henry's going to lose out on one of these years. Like at some point, we don't know if it's going to be next year, the following year, 3 years from now. At some point, Nick Chubb is not going to look like the same running back. There are points this year outside of the fourth quarter, he doesn't look like the same running back, I would argue. Again, whether that's scheme, whatever it is. But I do think like stop worrying about your second running back, Cleveland. Like get yourself a better center, get yourself a better left tackle, get yourself a better receiver, a better linebacker for God's sakes. How about some defensive tackle help? Where's Perion Winfrey and Jordan and all these guys they drafted that aren't contributing? Miles
Yeah.
Garrett Miles Garrett really does nothing to the fourth quarter. I've told you that. I think Jadeveon Clowney's been more impactful over the last 2 years when he's been on the field than Miles Garrett. But it's like I don't, and I told you this, Josh. It's like this
Yeah.
is why I come off very critical on the Browns. People say I hate the Browns. oh, you're an Eagles fan. You don't like the Browns. No, I live in Cleveland. My whole damn family are Browns fans. I actually like the Browns. I actually watch them. I got the Eagles game, Browns game on at the same time on 2 TVs.
You're like me.
I'm just more critical of the Browns because my one buddy when I was at my radio station is a huge Vikings fan, and he coined the term Browns observer, and I've always used that. That's what I am. I am a Browns observer, and I speak the truth on the Browns that these people that call into these radio stations and go on these talk shows aren't willing to say.
You know, it's interesting that you mention all that because while I am a Browns fan, like that's a huge like portion of my YouTube channel. Like I know I have all Cavalier stuff up, but during Browns season, like I have this whole thing decked out in Browns, and I try to do a Browns video collaboration for every game on their schedule, like I've said. But I'm like you. I'm hypercritical of them. You know, maybe I'm more of a fan than you are of the Browns. I get it. But I would say you and I are the same in that manner. But I want to go back to something you said earlier about the head coach and thinking he's the smartest person in the room. Because I don't know if you know this, but actually my favorite NFC team lives in the Pacific Northwest. They traded Russell Wilson to the Denver Broncos this year. Yeah, it's the Seattle Seahawks. I don't know why the Seahawks have always been my favorite NFC team. They just always have been.
Jerseys, weather. I mean, do you like the cold weather?
I've always liked that combination of blue and green. I did see them back in 2007 when they came to Cleveland.
Okay. Can I tell you a quick story, a 10-second story on why I don't really like Seattle?
Yeah.
I think they're a fun team this year. Obviously, stuff this year. Philadelphia in my lifetime has never beaten Seattle. Seattle, especially in Seattle. Seattle is our house of horrors. Just like Denver in a way is the Browns' house of horrors. Seattle is the Eagles' house of horrors. I've said it. I never, ever, ever look forward to playing in Seattle. There's something about Seattle. We don't play well. We get blown out in Seattle every single freaking time we play there.
Interesting. Well, I do know the Browns play. I don't know about the Eagles, but I do know the Browns will be at Seattle next year. I'm hoping I can actually go up to Seattle and go to that game.
Actually, Philadelphia, I believe, does go to Seattle next year because we're on the NFC West rotation. We hosted them in 2020 on a Monday night, so we will be in Seattle next year. I don't care what Seattle's record is. Right now, until we win in Seattle, I'm taking that as an automatic hell.
By the way, shout out to Norbcam. He is a diehard Seattle Seahawks fan. I worked with him when the Browns played the Seahawks in 2019. Hoping to work with him again next year in 2023. But anyway, getting back to my original point, you were talking about the head coach thinking he's smarter than everybody. That's exactly what I felt like Pete Carroll was doing during that final play in Super Bowl 49. This is my personal thinking on why the Seahawks did what they did. Because they were probably expecting the Patriots to be in some type of run play, or run defense, I should say. So my thinking on why they did the pass was, okay, let's try and catch them off guard by doing a quick slant. I've heard the other sayings or explanations, rather, that the reason they did it is because Russell Wilson wanted to be named
MVP,
right. But whatever the reason, I still think you could throw that into, what you were saying about the head coach thinking he's smarter than everybody.
So my thought on that play is, if you actually look at the analytics, I think Marshawn Lynch is only 1 for 8 on the 1 yard line or something like that going into that play. To be honest with you, have you ever seen Patriots when and Malcolm Butler practiced that exact play? So they knew it was coming. And I don't even think the pass was bad. Obviously, you could say they should have ran the ball. I didn't even, There was a zone read back then. Maybe you could have ran a read option. I didn't think the idea, to be honest with you, was that bad. I just think Malcolm Butler made the greatest play on a football we have ever seen, literally in the history of football. If he does not make a perfect break on that ball, I mean, Seattle's back-to-back Super Bowl champions more than likely. He probably catches the ball because the ball was right there. Seattle's back-to-back Super Bowl champions. The dynasty may still be going. Who knows what happens to New England and Brady and all that? The what-if part of sports is really interesting, isn't it, Josh?
It really is. Which, by the way, I know it's according to the all-time record books. Like it says, New England has 6 Super Bowl championships. I don't think all 6 are legitimate. For example,
that's a hot.
For example, like Super Bowl 49, I don't think that Super Bowl is legit because of the whole Deflategate stuff.
Oh, I think that's complete BS and all these scandals and you know what, Spygate, whatever you want to. And I've said this. Listen, I don't know if the balls were deflated or not. I don't really care, to be honest with you. I really don't. I personally think Brady could have, and I think Brady believes he could have won that court case, but decided he didn't want to because he didn't want to go to court because the NFL could just pay to win. And I honestly believe the same thing was true about, Deshaun Watson and, all these other cases that are happening. The NFL can just honestly pay to win. And these players who know that they can win just don't want to be in court the whole season.
Right.
But it's hard to say, Josh, to be honest with you. Like, we're almost 8 years into this. Like, New England has 6 Super Bowls. That's what the record book is going to say. It's not like a COVID situation. Like, I think COVID's different because of the no fans and everything like that. This isn't USC 2006. They're not going to strip championships.
And I understand that, but that doesn't mean I have to, like, even though the record book says, like, New England has 6 Super Bowl championships, that doesn't mean I have to agree with it.
Well, you don't have to agree with it, but I mean, it's Super Bowl 49. I mean, I guess you can go to Gabriel Brothers and get yourself a Seahawks loser shirt. We found a Arizona Cardinals one when they lost Super Bowl 43 to Pittsburgh, which ironically enough, I was still young back then. And I was rooting for Pittsburgh because Arizona knocked us off in the NFC Championship game. It should have been Eagles Steelers in the Super Bowl, but old Andy Reid, decided to not manage the fucking clock correctly again. And that's what cost the Eagles the NFC Championship that year. Oh, that was so frustrating. We were down 21-0 in that game in the first quarter. Came back, man, at 25-24. Then Kurt Warner and Beanie Wells going a huge drive and put the game away. I never forget that. I was 10 years old, maybe. Never forget that game. Thanks a lot, Andy.
Hey, I mean, you did end up getting your Super Bowl, if that's any consolation.
We did, and that's why I always say, guess what, Browns fans, you never experienced Super Bowl. I did.
I mean, hey, even though I'm a diehard Browns fan, I'm like, okay, I accept it. The Browns are probably never going to win a Super Bowl. So I don't get disappointed by it. What the hell?
Fair enough.
But, we've been talking a lot about the Browns and stuff, and we've gone off in other directions, but there's plenty of other games this weekend that have high stakes. The biggest one of the weekend coming on Monday Night Football. What a fitting Monday Night Football conclusion we're getting. Buffalo Bills at Cincinnati Bengals. The Bills are currently the number 1 seed in the AFC. Bengals are number 3. I've heard that Cincinnati would jump to the number 1 seed if they win this game.
I think they would as well because they would have had tiebreakers over Kansas City and Buffalo, and I think they would all have the same record.
I thought Kansas City had one less loss than Cincinnati.
Well, let's check that out real quick.
Yeah, I
could
can
be
look,
right. I'll tell you. So Buffalo has 3 losses. Cincinnati has 4. Kansas City does have 3. So you're right. If Kansas City were to beat, I think they're playing Denver. So Kansas City would have 13 wins. Cincinnati would have 12. So Cincinnati would go to the 2. Kansas City would still be the 1.
So that's what I thought. But think about it. Like, this could be a potential AFC championship preview, whether it's in Buffalo or Cincinnati. It doesn't matter.
It could be. I really do feel, and I know Browns fans hate this when I talk about the Bengals because I don't really hate the Bengals.
Neither do I.
I love Joe Burrow. Like
Same.
I hate to be openly about it, but I was rooting for the Bengals in the Super Bowl because I like Joe
So
Burrow more
was
than I
I.
like the Rams.
Oh,
Um,
I strongly dislike the Rams. So you're not alone there. I was rooting
I
for the
do
Bengals
too.
too.
So listen, like I love Josh Allen. I wanted the Browns to draft him number one in that draft. Who knows how his career would have
Same.
worked out? But I absolutely love Josh Allen. I love Joe Burrow as well. But the one thing that worries me about Buffalo, and I think this is true about Buffalo this year, it's fair to acknowledge we all love the Bills. They're explosive, yada yada yada. But they also have this like knockout punch to them where it's like they can win, but also in close games. Josh Allen this year, and I love Josh Allen, is he can get very interception happy. He can turn the football over. Buffalo is not very buttoned up, in my opinion. They're kind of very loosey goosey in a way where they just throw balls to the walls, if you will. Cincinnati to me, like, I don't care what the Browns say. Oh, well, we beat Cincinnati 3 times. Guess who you haven't beat that Cincinnati has beat twice? Kansas City.
Kansas City.
And I think it means something, Josh, more to Cincinnati. Here's the interesting thing. Whoever wins this game Monday night will have not only beaten Kansas City, they will have also beaten whoever they beat. You know, Buffalo, they beat Cincinnati. If Cincinnati wins, they would have beaten Kansas City and Buffalo. So, but I think Cincinnati, I think their defense is very underrated. Trey Anderson's a great football player. Buffalo has
Jesse
not been
Bates.
this Jesse Bates. Buffalo has not been the same without Von Miller. It's why in my best bets this week, I once again have Cincinnati plus 1.5. I think Joe Burrow is different. I think Joe Burrow is, you can make the argument today, third year in the league. He's a top 5 NFL quarterback. Certainly make the case for that. I think Cincinnati goes in there very close, nicking a game. Joe Burrow makes a key play on a third down. Maybe it's a game-winning drive. Maybe it's just to seal the game on a third down or first down. Cincinnati will win this game because they will turn the ball over less than Buffalo.
I agree with you. Yeah, of the 3 teams in the AFC North, I dislike Cincinnati the least. I would even say I know you shouldn't, when your favorite team resides in a division, you shouldn't have a second favorite team in the division. I don't care about that.
That doesn't make any sense, John. I don't understand that thinking. Look,
Like
I
I
don't
also
hate
like
the
the
AFC.
Bengals. I'm sorry, I do.
I think I've always had a little bit of respect for Cincinnati just because with Andy Dalton, he didn't win a playoff game. They were still in the playoffs every single year. Baltimore too. Like I really like John Harbaugh. I really like Lamar Jackson. That's a very interesting situation. I don't know what they're going to do with him. The fact of the matter is they are a playoff team as well. And I feel like this always goes back to the Browns conversation, where the Browns are in a very interesting spot right now because you got Burrow and Lamar Jackson, and Joe Burrow is like way up here to me. Like he is a freaking stud. Did not expect it on LSU. We had the best college football season I think we've ever seen. Came in, but I said, Josh, I think it was Burrow's second game. It was at the Browns on a Thursday night. The Browns won that game. I remember having a show the next day. It was obviously Burrow against Baker. And I said that night, I don't care what the result of the game is. Joe Burrow right now is better than Baker Mayfield. And I still believe it. And I watched him and I watched him grow. That kid has an it factor. And there is something, and Josh Allen has this too in a way, where it's like, went to a little bit of a small school, obviously Allen, Wyoming, Burrow, bigger school at Ohio State. But Urban Meyer took Dwayne Askins over Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow goes to LSU, lights it up, and just has never looked back since. When greatness is doubted, that may have been the best thing that ever happened to one Joe Burrow.
Yeah. You're talking about all this. If I had to rank the other 3 teams in the AFC North in terms of who I dislike the most, with 1 being the team I dislike the least, 2 being the team you know how it works. Gotcha. 1 would be Cincinnati. I dislike them the least. Like there are times I find myself rooting for the Bengals, like during the Super Bowl last year. Second would be Pittsburgh. I dislike them a little more than Cincinnati, but not much. Like, all I've heard is, oh, the Browns have a rivalry with the Steelers, yada, yada, yada. No, they don't. The Steelers have whooped the Browns for years. And it's like, I've talked to Steelers fans that when I've been to Browns games against the Steelers, I've talked to my dad and I went to a Steelers game a couple years ago against the Browns. I've had nothing but great, pleasant conversations with Steelers fans. Like, I'm friends with a couple Steelers fans. So I'm like, okay, where's the rivalry? I don't see it. Like, when the Browns and Steelers play each other, I don't know, other than the wild card game, and other than the Week 17 game that got the Browns into the playoffs to set up that wild card, I can't tell you any other like high stakes
I
showdown
think
that the
the
Browns.
rivalry lost a little bit of its luster, especially when Ben Roethlisberger started declining. Because in my opinion, like what made Philadelphia Dallas special, for example, McNabb and Romo, every year. Now you had Dak and Wentz. Now it's obviously Dak and Hurts. For the Browns, it's a revolving door at quarterback. Then obviously Big Ben just beating them down. Now it's Jacoby Brissett, week 3 against Mitch Trubisky. Like, who's excited to watch that game? Like, we all knew it was going to be a bad game. And when both teams are bad, I think it's really hard to say. And I understand why, because I know you're going to say you don't like the Ravens the most. I understand why. A little bit obvious, I think it has to do with them moving the team. But
it has nothing to do with that.
Okay. I mean, Joe Flacco obviously beat the Browns a lot of times. Like, I have a wider respect for Baltimore because, again, they have made the playoffs a lot. But I just really like the way Lamar Jackson plays. Like, I love Lamar Jackson. It's why I can't hate Baltimore either. Because as I told you, when you joined me for my Christmas special on my show, like before Lamar Jackson got hurt, Baltimore was the only team in the league. They did it, more than Philly. They did it more than Buffalo, more than Kansas City. These top contenders were naming. Baltimore was the only team in the league who had a double-digit lead in every single game this season. That is something to coaching. That is something to talent. Now, what happened in the fourth quarter, I have no idea. John Harbaugh has to figure it out. But that's my take on Baltimore.
So here's the reason why I dislike Baltimore the most. It has nothing to do with Art Modell moving the team to Baltimore, because even though Modell moved the team, the name Browns, the colors of brown and orange, and the history all stayed in Cleveland. So the Ravens
That is correct.
The Ravens were basically an expansion team that was hitting the reset button. Like, they couldn't be the Colts because the Colts obviously kept their name when they moved to Indianapolis, and they couldn't be the Browns because, like I just said, the colors and the name and all the history stayed in Cleveland. So they got their name because of the Edgar Allan Poe poem, The Raven. But the reason I dislike the Ravens the most is because I felt like recently, not only have the games been so nip and tuck between the Browns and Ravens, but it's felt like when the Browns and Ravens have played each other, at least recently, there's been something on the line. Whether it was that Week 17 game a couple years ago where, like, if Baltimore won, they won the division and got into the playoffs. Whereas if the Browns beat the Ravens, then the Steelers would have won the division. Or it was something it was something like that. They had the Browns and Ravens had that epic Monday night game where Lamar Jackson left the field to go do his business.
Absolutely.
And then he came out like Superman, and we know what happened.
That was, in my opinion, the last ever Browns Ravens game. It felt big. The 2021, the Sunday night game, it was a bad football game. There's some good hype going into it, but Baker turned the ball over. Lamar Jackson turned the ball over. I really want to see Lamar versus Deshaun Watson. We got robbed of it this year. Browns have not seen Lamar the last 2 times he's come to Cleveland, which to me is unfortunate.
Yeah, but that's my reason for why I dislike the Ravens the most. Like I said, it has nothing to do with the whole Art Modell situation.
Okay.
for a lot of Browns fans, that is the reason why. And I do respect that. You know, Browns fans are always going to hate the Denver Broncos because of everything with John Elway and the drive and all this and that. But I'm like, I was not born yet for any of that stuff.
That's
so
fair.
I don't have, personally, I don't have any animosity towards the Denver Broncos. But I don't like them either. I'm just kind of indifferent about the Broncos. I'm like, okay, whatever. But yeah, I mean, there are certain teams that I strongly dislike, such as the Rams, because of the way Stan Kroenke screwed over the city of St. Louis. I hated that. I've always hated Washington, mostly because of their team name and logo. Even though they've since changed their name and logo, I still strongly dislike them because you can never erase that part of history. I've never liked the Dallas Cowboys because, we're America's team. Okay, really? When was the last time you actually did something, Dallas? Tell me. When was the last time the Cowboys did shit?
Music to my ears, buddy. Music to my ears.
Seriously, when's the last time the Cowboys did shit?
Oh, that Christmas Eve game crushed me. Oh, a lot of people call Gardner Minshew Magic, or Mustache Minshew, whatever. I call him Gardner the Baller. That kid is a baller, and man, that hurt. We certainly had a chance to win the game. Couple interceptions by him. The turnovers. Hey, you can do what you want. Dak Prescott played a perfect game, and we still scored 34 points, and we had our backup quarterback. So,
oh yeah, if Jalen Hurts was in for you guys, I think you win that game.
You know what makes me mad is these Cowboys fans said, "Oh, look how good we did." I cannot wait to see if we play them again, because if we play them again in Philadelphia, we will win. I have declared it. I really believe in my heart of hearts we should have won the game on Christmas Eve.
You all right over there?
Yeah, I'm good. My webcam just fell.
Hey, welcome to the world of live TV.
I'm banging on the table too much here, Josh. There we go.
I love it. You're a passionate fan. That's what we like here on the SportsRoom Talk Show. That's what we like.
Giving you ratings. Really, I've never had a show this intense before. That's what I do. I got my Starbucks coffee here today. Here, let me see. There you go. You can see it's a toasted white chocolate grande. I waited a half an hour for this thing because the Starbucks machines were broken. I've been at the gym already today. It's New Year's Eve. I'm here at the sports room. I'm fired up today, Josh.
Good God. First of all, even though we don't have any live viewers in the show right now, which that's okay. Sometimes people come on and watch afterwards. It doesn't matter. Well, it does matter because I want the subscribers and all that. But you know what I mean. But, hey, I mean, the way you and I are going, we got to keep doing this more often because I love having you on.
It's fireworks, man. Every time I come into a building, I want to make a statement. As I always told people, and I will say this publicly, and I'm not afraid to admit it. If you go to our Believe in Media podcast, they have great podcasts, obviously. Guardians of the COE, Orange and Brown Weekly, all things where it's the Believe in Media High School Prep podcast. But I don't care what anybody says. Put my intro and my energy up with anybody in our company, anybody in the business. And I will put it up with anybody because I can get you fired up. Ask my co-host, Joey Schneider, who last week, I couldn't even really do the intro. I was laughing so hard because Josh, I broke his freaking headset because I was screaming so hard as we began the show.
I remember that.
Thank God he had a backup headset. He said he was going anyway, and I just blew the last part of it out.
I mean, you and I are clearly matching energies. Like, I have this type of energy anyway when I'm doing this show. I just needed that, like...
We need a moderator. We need to turn this into Skip and Shannon Undisputed. Only with Unger and Lewis. We need a moderator. Let's go. Let's quit our day jobs, man. Weekly, Monday through Friday, 9 to noon. Let's do this.
I wish. Hey, on a serious note, maybe we can turn this into a weekly thing.
Who the hell knows, man?
We can text about it afterwards. But I want to get to the NBA because the Cavaliers are taking on the.
Woo! The NBA. Woo!
Hey, keep the energy. Keep the energy.
All right, let's do it.
All right. So the Cavs have lost 3 games in a row, losing most recently to the Pacers 135 to 126. Tonight they will be in the Windy City to take on the Chicago Bulls. What do you think's gone wrong in these last 3 games against the Raptors,
So,
Nets,
Josh,
and Pacers?
another shout out to All Things Cowboys. Me and Joey talked about this week on ATC. And I said this week, I don't know what the hell to think of these Cavs because I don't know what the hell to think of the entire NBA in general. The entire NBA stinks. Like, outside of a couple teams, there are great teams like Milwaukee getting blown out almost every night by the Cavs in Brooklyn and Boston. Boston's got flaws. Golden State Curry just went down. You got all these injuries. You got all these teams. Luka Doncic been doing great. Zion Williamson did great. LeBron just put up another 40-point, almost triple-double last night. But there's not a lot of winning going on. There's a lot of parity in the NBA, something we haven't seen for years. And so, while I think the Cavs do need a small forward, and we've talked about this at length, and while I do think Evan Mobley needs to be more, and well, I do think that Evan Mobley needs to be more aggressive because where the hell is Evan Mobley on some nights? Like, I can complain a lot about how the Cavs don't get off the start, and it seems like the coaching staff is not getting them ready to play, and I don't get the rotation, and they need all these pieces, and now Darius Garland. Like, I can complain about a lot of stuff with the Cavs, but the bottom line is they're only 3.5, 4 games out of first place in the East, and it feels like they haven't played well in 2 months.
I know. I'm looking at the injury report for both teams tonight. Darius Garland, day-to-day. Evan Mobley, day-to-day. Robin Lopez, day-to-day. Chetty Osman, day-to-day. Looking at the Bulls.
What happened with Mobley? Because I didn't hear that.
I don't know.
So Mobley may not play tonight.
I don't know what happened, but he's on the injury report. He's on the injury report, and it says day-to-day.
Okay, go ahead and read Chicago's injury report, and then I'll give my thoughts.
Okay, so injury report for Chicago. Alex Caruso, day-to-day. Javonte Green, day-to-day. Kobe White, day-to-day. Derek Jones Jr., he is listed as out. Goran Dragic, day-to-day. So a lot of day-to-day.
So Mobley's listed questionable with an ankle injury. Now, okay, Josh, I said this on ATC on Thursday. The Cavs obviously have a home-and-home with the Bulls Saturday and Monday. Chicago, before they start, as you talked about in your column this week on BelieveInMediaLSC.com, which you can all check out, the Cavs begin a stretch of 12 out of 16 games in January against the Western Conference. Right. My thinking is, I don't care if Evan Mobley's out. I don't care if Darius Garland's out. Like the Cavs, you need to win these next 2 games, both against Chicago. Chicago's not very good. I thought they were going to take a step back. There's been some reporting and some infighting with DeMar DeRozan and Zach LaVine this season. Chicago just doesn't seem like to me a very good team. The Cavs handled them the last time they played them in Chicago. Mm-hmm. This Cavs team, it seems like even at home now, against the West, outside of probably the Lakers, they have struggled this season.
Look at what happened with Sacramento. We got swept by the Kings.
I get it. It's like, Josh, I know you agree with me on this. It's really hard to pinpoint. Like, it's really hard. I admit this publicly. It's very hard to come up with topics every week for ATC because it's like you want to talk about the same thing every week, even though you really can't. But it's hard to determine, like, does this team do they need to go out on the outside, or can Dean Wade be that answer? Why does this team should be way better than what they are? They should be coming out. They should be beating Sacramento. They should be beating Indiana. But at the same time, they get these gigantic leads against Milwaukee, and then they let them back in the ballgame. Or they hang in with Milwaukee in the first half. Then Brook Lopez hits 7 3-pointers and knocks them out of the ballgame. Like, is it just me? Like, I don't really know what to think of this Cavs team. To me, they're not as good as they were last year at this point in the year, and I don't know what record is. I don't know what it speaks to, but I'm not as confident in this Cavs team right now as I was at the beginning of the year. But at the same time, as I said, what NBA team at this point do you trust? The only one that I can legitimately say I think they have a legitimate shot to win the championship, and I know they have struggled on the road as well, but I've been telling people this for weeks. Watch out when Steph Curry gets back for Golden State, because Golden State's experience, they've done it before. Them, Milwaukee, Boston. I think those are your three teams that you're looking at to get it right. Brooklyn, I still don't trust. They're playing well now. Who the hell knows if they're going to play good a month from now? I don't. Maybe it's good for the NBA that we have all these teams like the Pelicans doing well, and Memphis, the Knicks are even in the playoffs, which I freaking hate the Knicks. And I'm sure my feelings on that. They're talking about Madison Square Garden is the Mecca in sports. The Knicks have been good in 25 years.
Bingo.
Whatever. It's actually more known now, pretty much for hosting great WWE shows, than it is for hosting great Knicks games. But that's
don't forget the UFC. They've had some
and
good...
the UFC as well. But again, it's like, Josh, I'm looking around the league and I'm like, Luka Doncic is great. There's been a lot of great performances. Jason Tatum, Giannis, Durant,
Anthony Edwards.
Anthony Edwards. But as I keep saying, and I'm going to honestly ask you this question.
Go ahead.
Is there a team right now, like right now, as they currently stand, injuries included in this now, that you could say right now for sure that team is going to be in contention for a championship coming in May? Like, are there a team that you say, oh, they're definitely making the conference finals? Because there's not a team right now, in my opinion.
I can make an argument for Denver, possibly, with Jamal Murray.
Okay.
Jamal Murray, Michael Porter Jr., the Joker. I'm not definitively saying the Nuggets.
I'm
just saying that an argument could be made for Denver.
Part of it is because I'm not the biggest fan of Jokic. I didn't think he should have won MVP last year. I really thought that should have been Joel Embiid. I'm a bigger fan of Joel Embiid, and it's not because I Philadelphia ties. Like, I just legitimately like Joel Embiid. I think he's a great basketball player. But Denver, just again, like, they made the one Western Conference runs in the bubble. Like, how much do I trust that? Not really. They're a little bit of a team under the radar. They don't have much depth to me, but they're certainly a good team. Like, to me, there are a lot of good teams. I think that's what we're seeing right now. There's a lot of good teams. Like Milwaukee, to me, if they would have had Middleton last year, I would generally think they could have went back-to-back and beaten Golden State. I think they would have beat Boston. I think that was a major factor. Like, I'm not a big believer in Boston. I think Boston got away with it because Middleton got hurt. I think it changed the whole series. A lot of this stuff does come down to injury. I'll be very interested to see what the Clippers look like if Kawhi Leonard is healthy and actually playing, because I think that's a very dangerous team.
Oh, 100%.
I think Golden State is dangerous. Memphis, I love, but they got to win. They got to show me. I'm a show me guy, right? I don't believe in young teams that much, until they show me. Cavs, to me, are in the same situation. Like, Donovan Mitchell never has made the NBA Finals. What will he do in the postseason in his new environment? Which is why I think the Cavs are one of the deepest teams in the league. And I talked about it. I do believe there's a chance they could make it out of the East this year if they get healthy and potentially make a deal. I absolutely believe that. But in regards to these two games, just getting back to it, Josh, I am begging for once. And they did it against, I think it was Miami, one of those nights a couple weeks ago, I think. Maybe it was Portland. Like, I'm begging them. No, it was Utah. I'm sorry. It was the game against the Jazz. Like, can they put a performance up against the Jazz, against the Bulls? Can they just come out for 4 quarters, play good defense, play good offense, and just win the ball game? Because I don't care what the stats say. Yeah, they're a top 10 offense and they're a top 5 defense. Does their defense really look top 5 to you?
No.
Because it doesn't to me. In the fourth quarter, it does. And this is my problem with the Cavs. Oh, well, they always come back and make it a ball game. What about the first half when you're up 67 points to Indiana at all teams? Like, really?
Right.
What am I supposed to do with that?
Nothing. I'm the same way. It's like, okay, like, I get it. You have a great offense. You can score. But you have to also play defense, right?
And we have talked about this a lot. They play way too much iso ball. And I think that's what's hurting Evan Mobley as well. To me, when I watch the Cavs, is what I see, right? Garland and Mitchell playing iso ball, either one of them two. They drive to the basket. Lamar Stevens or Karis LeVert or whoever the hell is in that wing spot is literally wide open in the corner. They're not even really guarding them. They are daring that person to shoot the ball. Same thing they did last year with Okoro. Every time Okoro shoot, brick, brick, brick.
I mean, for God's sakes, I have this sign over here. I made it double-sided. On one side, it says, "Hey, Cavaliers, can you please silence the Thunder?" Because I went to that game against the Thunder. But on the other side, it actually says, "Hey, Isaac Okoro, can you please score double digits?" Like, it's a whole inside joke with my friend Chris that started when we went to one of the Bulls games last year, where he was like on 9 points, and we kept waiting the entire fourth quarter for him to score double digits, and it never happened. So it's become an inside joke ever since. But yeah, like I've written about this for Fansided a couple times, which I know, like Fansided articles can't go in Believeland articles. I get it. Like it's all business stuff, whatever. But the point is, anyway, like the Cavaliers don't have a reliable small forward. So
they don't.
So
and I am starting to get concerned. And Josh, I mentioned this on ATC this week.
Mm-hmm.
What I would do is, because I'm starting to get concerned about Evan Mobley a little bit. I think Evan Mobley is a tremendous talent. I don't think he's using his talent to his advantage. What I would do is, I'm not necessarily saying you play Mobley at the 3, but with Jared Allen inside a lot, maybe you put LeVert on the wing or whatever, but have Mobley be one of those guys in the corner that can stand there and take the 3, or run more pick and roll with Mobley and the defense either decide to go at him and Allen, or you can pass it back to him for pick and pop. Like, I do think at this point we saw Evan Mobley's ability as a shooter in college, and it would have been his first year with the Cavs. Like, that to me is where this offense should open up, is Mobley, regardless if we love him inside and all that he does. I want to see him shoot the ball more, because I think with Mitchell on this team specifically now, and then having another ball dominant guard, that is going to be his best role to get production on offense.
While I agree with you to a certain extent, I don't really want Evan Mobley shooting the 3-pointer. Like, I get it. There's a lot of stretch 4s in the league now. Like, I would say Dirk Nowitzki kind of started that whole thing.
There is, and as Steph Curry has basically eliminated back to the basket centers in basketball, I believe in the NBA today, you have to have at least 4 guys on the court that can shoot at all times, preferably 5. And that's why I'm saying, like, Mobley can't shoot. Like, Mobley is not, I personally think now when I look at it, I don't know why it works so well with Markkanen and Mobley and Allen, and it's not working now. Doesn't make any sense to me. I have no words. I have no words to describe how I feel about this Cavs team, because they should be way freaking better than the way they play. Yet again, their record says they're one of the best teams in basketball.
Yeah, I know. And think about this. We just went 4-2 on our recent 6-game homestand.
And it feels like they went 2-4, to me at least.
Okay, fair. But one of those 4 wins was against the freaking Milwaukee Bucks.
Yep. And as I just said, Milwaukee got blown out. Do you realize this? They got blown out by the Cavs, Brooklyn, and Boston in 3 straight games. And that's with, in my opinion, the best player in basketball, Giannis, which is why I believe in today's NBA, it's more about depth and chemistry than it is about the stars. You can have Giannis, but if you don't have Middleton now, if you don't have that second star, I don't know how far you're going in a good postseason series with a good depth team like Boston. That being said, I think the Cavs match up great with both Boston and Milwaukee if they can only, again, freaking execute.
I mean, for God's sakes, we're 2-0 against the Celtics so far this season. We probably should have won. We should have won probably that first game in Milwaukee.
Should have won the first game against Milwaukee. Probably. They had him at the half. And again, Brook Lopez at all people hit 7 threes. Like, what are you going to do with that? Be very interested to see. Again, I'm not pushing the panic button, but I want to see how this team does in January. I want to see them come out and I want to see them at least be 500, if not above 500. If they start losing these games in January, like somebody brought it up on Twitter last night, and again, we're at this point where it's like, if they begin to slip down the standings here, is JB Bickerstaff in trouble? Because there hasn't been a lot of talk about Bickerstaff, but I'll tell you what, I think the players like Bickerstaff, but his rotations, I don't understand them.
I know. Like, again, this is another article I wrote for Fanside. The Cavaliers are over reliant on Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland. Like, they're having to play like 37 to 42 minutes a game, and it feels like every game they have to score like sometimes 30 plus points a game.
Well, and I told you this, and I don't understand this, and maybe it's because he's been out injured a little bit, I get recently, but we signed Robin Lopez, which I said on our ATC podcast. I freaking love that signing. That was to me like, okay, we have a backup center for Jared Allen. He's going to be in there playing 15, 20 minutes a night, giving us productive minutes as a backup center off the bench. The same thing what Moses Brown did last year, and I love Moses Brown. I have no idea why they want him go. And where the hell has Lopez been this year outside of garbage time? Like, they don't play him. It's like, we signed Neto, and I get, he wasn't going to play that much when Rubio gets back. But I thought the reason why they signed Ronaldo Neto is so he could be the backup point guard until Ricky Rubio gets back. And he rarely plays, and when he does play, he plays well. Bickerstaff, and me and Joey both said this at the beginning of the year. We were concerned when JB Bickerstaff came out and said he wants Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland, at least one of them on the floor at the same time, all the time, 48 minutes. And we both said, why? That makes no sense. You're going to exhaust one of them.
Exactly. So you and I are on the same page in that regard then.
Yes. Josh, I don't know what to think about this Cavs team. I've been saying it for weeks. I cover them weekly on a podcast. I've been saying the same thing for weeks. I don't understand. It's like I can be very critical of them, but at the same time, I also have to realize like I can be very critical of literally every single team in the NBA right now.
Oh yeah,
because I cannot remember a time in the NBA 3 or 4 years ago you could have made the case you knew what the NBA Finals was going to be before the season started. Now, I mean, seeding, is it going to matter or not? We really don't know. It kind of feels like it will, but will it? I think it depends more on matchups. Miami has taken a step back this year in the East. Philly, untrustable to me. They're just a weird team. Doc Rivers is the Andy Reid I've always said of the NBA, does not know how to manage in the postseason. Toronto, shockingly bad in my opinion, even though they're 3-0 against the Cavs. No one trusts the Knicks. Atlanta, all they got is Trae Young and DeJounte Murray, but they're struggling this season.
Look at the Pacers. They come out of nowhere, and they're actually a good team.
Tyrese Halliburton to Buddy Hield to a single-handedly beating the Cavs should not have happened. Whatever. I guess we'll start talking more NBA when football season's over, the way I look at it.
I mean, look at the next. After these 2 games against Chicago, you've got at Phoenix at home, at Denver, at Phoenix, at Utah, which I will actually be in Salt Lake City for Donovan Mitchell's return to Utah. I don't normally like to see the Cavaliers on the road when I go to other teams' arenas because I like to be able to integrate myself into the home team's crowd and root for the home team and be part of the atmosphere and all that. But hey, I couldn't pass up this opportunity when my dad presented it to me. And then after Utah, you're at Portland, and then you're at Minnesota. You come home for a Martin Luther King Jr. game, MLK Day game, against Zion, Brandon Ingram, CJ McCollum, and the Pelicans. And then you go right back out on the road to play John Morant and the Grizzlies. And then who the fuck came up with this? On January 20th, you have to play Steph, if he's healthy, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, and the 2022 NBA champion Golden State Warriors. And then on January 21st, Giannis, Chris Middleton, if he's back by then, Brook Lopez, Drew Holiday, Bobby Portis, and the Milwaukee Bucks. What the actual fuck? Why do we have to play the Warriors and the Bucks on back-to-back days?
So to me,
I hate you, NBA schedule makers. I hate you.
So to me, they got to go 500 in that stretch.
Yes.
Like you're talking all that stretch, I think 500 is reasonable. There's some games on the road they have to win. I think they have to win one of those home games against Golden State or Milwaukee. I think they absolutely had to beat Phoenix in one of those two times, preferably at home. And as I said, that's why I believe you cannot lose these games to the Bulls. You have to beat them both. The Bulls are not that good. The Cavs, they need to flex their muscle.
Yeah. And then, you talk about winning those two games against Golden State and Milwaukee. After that, you're at the Knicks, at the Rockets, at the Thunder, and then you have to come home and finish out the month with the Clippers and the Miami Heat.
That should be at least 4-1, I would say.
Yeah.
That should be at least 4-1. So
the Thunder did give us a pretty good challenge the first time around.
But again, it's like if they just come out and ready to play, why? Josh, I don't understand it. They're either ready to play in the first half or they're ready to play in the second half. They're not ready to play both.
Which is interesting, because I heard that a lot on College Game Day today about Michigan. Like the Michigan Wolverines are a second half team, so TCU's not going to be able to make. But
football is different. Football is different though, because with the offense and defensive lines, the physicality, you're able to wear teams down. That's not the case in basketball.
True, that's a fair point, but I just thought
I agree. Yeah, Eddie ready to play, and I understand the analogy, and it drives me nuts. One more topic back to the Browns. Why do they start off the game up 7-0, then they don't score till the fourth quarter? That absolutely drives me nuts. I think, like I've said this, playing in the NFL, playing quarterback doesn't look to be that hard. Baker Mayfield came off the street in 2 days and beat the goddamn Raiders. Coaching does not look that hard. The good coaches make it look easy. Like, again, making it harder than it has to be, Josh.
100%. So I feel like we've had some good conversations about the National Football League. We've had some good conversations about the NBA. But you know what sport we need to go to next, which some people might not consider it sports. They would say it's more sports entertainment.
Oh, okay.
But I don't care. I'm putting it in the sports category because wrestling is pretty damn hard to do. Like, think about it. They have to take steel chairs to the back.
They
get thrown into steel steps and barbed wire.
It is scripted, but very real. Just ask AJ Styles, who just broke his ankle apparently Thursday night. So
yeah. By the way, this is just a little pet peeve of mine. I don't like it when people tell me that like WWE or AEW is fake, because I like to be able to like watch whatever match I'm watching, and then or like listen to the promo.
Oh, I know. Aren't you annoyed at there's one family member that comes over like once a year and you're trying to watch wrestling and they go, "Why are you watching that crap? It's fake."
Yeah. Or like, there was a promo with Chris Jericho and William Regal I don't remember if Regal was there. Yeah, it was. It was leading up to the Anarchy in the Arena match.
Okay.
And like Jericho was cutting a promo and my dad's like, "Why are you like, this is all disgusting. Like, why do you enjoy this?" And I'm like, "How?" And he's like, "How can these guys be saying this stuff about each other?" I'm like, "Okay, like, it's not real, but like Jericho obviously got permission from Regal to
there's a different mindset to be a wrestling fan.
Right. And I think you know what promo I'm talking about, right?
I really don't, because I don't really watch AEW that much.
Oh, so you're more of a WWE guy.
I am way more of a WWE guy.
Fair enough.
And I've told you why, I think, in the past. When AEW started, I watched their first event, which I believe was Double or Nothing 2019. And I thought, okay, I think this is going to work. But over time, just AEW, I was not impressed early on. with their storylines, their advancement. And I'm not a huge pro wrestling guy. Like, I don't watch TNA. I don't watch New Japan Pro Wrestling. I'm not a big pro wrestling guy. I am way more, and I told you this, I am way more of the microphone guy, the promo guy, the story guy, than the in-ring flips. And they're going to kick out at two because AEW no-sells all their finishers. Like, that is what turned me off. I also am not the biggest fan of Tony Khan. And you can say what you want about Vince McMahon and WWE, but I think Tony Khan has proven to be more like Vince than we all thought. And just to me, like AEW, the constant shots they took at WWE to me was not necessary. And I just thought, like, and I've never been this war type person where NXT was better and all this. Like, I want both shows to succeed. I think competition is good for everybody. But I've said this about wrestling too. I don't care if you love AEW. I don't care if you hate AEW. I don't care if you love WWE. I don't care if you hate WWE. I don't care if you love any promotion or you hate it. Wrestling is very niche. Some people that I know can enjoy everything. They can enjoy WWE, AEW, New Japan, TNA, MLW, whatever other promotion is. But I believe I like being a very casual wrestling fan. I think wrestling has become very saturated. There's wrestling on almost every single night now. If you want to watch, free WWE shows. I didn't even watch NXT. 3 or 4 AEW shows. In New Japan, as I mentioned, so that's just my take. I think WWE personally is very fun for the type of wrestling that I like. And there's been some moments in AEW, especially with some WWE guys, the Bryan Danielsons and the Jerichos and those guys. But I don't think AEW, outside of really MJF, and you can make an argument for Jungle Boy and maybe Wardlow, a couple of these other people, my biggest criticism of them is they don't follow up on anything. Boom, a guy comes out, big return, he's going to be great. Where do these guys go? You never see them again. They really don't follow up on storylines. And they just kind of turn me off because it feels like a show. They're catering to really a hardcore wrestling audience, and I'm not that. And I feel like it is a little bit of a disrespect to the casual audience because they don't care about growing their audience because, let's be honest, their audience hasn't grown. Which is why I told you it's going to be very interesting to see how the Warner Brothers deal impacts them next year.
And I do hear you. Speaking of TV deals, I thought there was a rumor going around that at one point WWE was considering making a deal with ESPN. I don't know if that.
No, there is a rumor going around. I don't know if we addressed this on my show or not. That, as you know, NBC Universal, which is, of course, USA Network, NBC, and all that. Of course, WWE is now on Peacock. Of course, NBC Universal is on Raw and NXT on USA.
And SmackDown is still on Fox.
There is a rumor that in the next TV contract, obviously, I think WWE is going to try to negotiate with Fox. We'll see. I actually think Fox and WWE have had a great relationship. I love the fact that SmackDown is on Friday nights. I think Fox has been a really good partner for them. But I am interested to see if by chance, I don't think SmackDown would go back to USA Network. But I'm interested to see if by chance NBC is willing to pick it up and they put it on NBC. Because if that is the case, if NBC owns Peacock, Raw, NXT, and SmackDown at that point, there has been a legitimate rumor that I do think now with Vince McMahon not in charge, there is that possibility of WWE potentially being sold to NBC Universal.
Okay, so you don't think the rumor of them getting involved with ESPN is true?
I thought when they were going to sell the WWE Network, which, by the way, I haven't really mentioned this publicly, but I do want to mention this because you said you give me some time to share some thoughts on this show, which I appreciate. So I want to share this thought real quick.
Go ahead.
What Vince McMahon did with the WWE Network, and this is one of my other criticisms of AEW and UFC, by the way, even though I don't watch UFC, but I'm going to make this point real quick. Mm-hmm. What Vince did with the WWE Network, everybody thought was stupid at the time, and it was the absolute most genius decision he has ever made, in my opinion, one of the most. Because he made WrestleMania from going from $60. Think about this, Josh. WrestleMania 30 went from $60, $70 down to you could get it for $10. and people thought Vince was crazy. Now the WWE Network grown so much, they sold it to Peacock. They have a rights deal with A&E for their WWE Network exclusive stuff, the Rivals and the biographies, which were originally WWE Network. Now they're owned by A&E pretty much. Like, to me, it is 2023. We're gonna, and if you wanted to, you could sign up for a free trial on Peacock and watch WrestleMania 39 in Hollywood for freaking free. Like,
yeah.
But you're gonna. So I think the streaming thing was brilliant, and AEW and UFC are making people still pay $60, $70 for pay-per-views. I get it. They only have 4 a year or whatever the case may be. So I understand it. But like, the fact that people like myself, like I have checked out some AEW pay-per-views, I'm not paying $60 for it. I will find it in a legal stream. Like the fact that you have to pay as much money for one pay-per-view that WWE, if you do the $5 on Peacock package, you're paying for a whole year of premium live events, which is the reason why I know you don't like the name, but the reason why they switched to PLE is because they're not on pay-per-view anymore. They're on Peacock, which is not a pay-per-view. It really is a premium live event. So, in all that aspect, I love it. And so that is one of the reasons why I think, yes, they could absolutely sell. Again, when they were going to sell the WWE Network, there was a rumor ESPN Plus, Disney Plus would get into that. They did not. And so WWE used to have a working relationship with ESPN. They don't really much anymore. I don't buy that rumor. No, but that's the long way of saying I don't buy the rumor.
Fair enough. No, I
that's my thought.
No, I hear what you're saying about the UFC and AEW.
Like, to me, pay-per-view should no longer exist. Like, there are things in this world that, like, think about it, Josh, and I don't even understand why WWE is still on DirecTV. They're almost scamming people if you really want to buy a $60. Like, just buy a $30 Roku streaming stick or Amazon Fire Stick, put it up on your TV, even if you don't have a smart TV, put it up on your Fire Stick or whatever, plug it into the back of the TV, and there you go. And I'm not the biggest streamer. Like, I'm still a person that uses cable. I don't do the live streaming service and all that. But I love the fact, to me, streaming should be used, like, if you want to watch a premium live event or if you want to go back and watch something. That's what I really use streaming for. But again, I think the Peacock thing was absolutely brilliant. A lot of people were not happy they sold the network to Peacock, and I understand that. But it's also saving me money because instead of paying $15 for the network and Peacock, I'm only paying $5 now for both.
Yeah. No. I don't dislike premium live events. It's just the name sounds weird. That's all.
I've gotten used to it. I agree with you. When they first said it, I was like, what? But I have grown to it, and I thought about it like this. I said, it's not a pay-per-view. Like,
right.
You're not paying to view. I get why they changed the name. And
I totally understand why they changed their name. I just don't really like the name, but I do understand it. Here's the thing. Like, I will only watch like 1 or 2 UFC pay-per-views a year. Like, even though I consider myself like a huge UFC fan, I don't watch every single pay-per-view. Like, I heard a rumor that UFC is now increasing their pay-per-view price to like almost $80. And I'm like,
and they should be doing the opposite. Like, again, if you want to make your product more, and I believe this, which is again why I'm a little, you can say I'm a WWE homer, but whatever you want. But what WWE does is they make their product global. We saw Logan Paul come in. We saw Johnny Knoxville come in. We saw Bad Bunny come in. WWE has always done this with pop culture. And they make their product accessible. I think that's one of the reasons why Fox is great, because you can see it on broadcast television compared to you have to have cable to watch Raw and NXT.
Yeah, and I hear you on that one. Like, the great thing with UFC, though, is, like, if I don't watch a pay-per-view, it's available on ESPN Plus a few weeks later, so I can go back and watch it.
But, okay, so I'm going to counter with this. Why don't you just put it on ESPN Plus for $5 a month? Like, by the way, can I make this point because it's not WWE related? Do you remember last year when the NFL had, what was it called? It was NFL Game Pass, I think. It was like, what, $100, $200 for the whole season? Guess what? That's now an NFL Plus for $5 a month. And I guarantee you will make that revenue up because more people will subscribe to it than you ever add because it's cheaper.
Yeah, and NFL Sunday Ticket is now moving to YouTube.
Which, you know why I'm pissed off about that, Josh?
How come?
I'm pissed off because if you're gonna move it, make it $5 a month, make it $10 a month. Why is it going to still be $400? Why can't I pay for a Philadelphia Eagles exclusive package if I wanted to? Why am I still paying $400 for a service? I basically, you might as well have kept it on DirecTV. Is my point.
Right.
Like,
It's the same type of thing. Like the Cleveland Monsters, the AHL affiliate of the Columbus Blue Jackets. They're on TV today against Charlotte. The puck drop was at 12:31 Eastern. Because it's December 31st and all that. They're losing 3-0, but that's not the point. My point is I would have loved to have covered the Monsters this season for Believeland, but I'm not going to pay the subscription cost to get AHL TV because that's just not worth it to me.
No, again, if it was $5, sure, but what is it, $15 or $20? I think for the Bally
it's
Sports,
more than that.
It's incredible. And the NFL can do whatever they want, obviously, because they're a giant, whether we like it or not. Again, though, I know you want to talk a little bit about professional wrestling. 2022, obviously the wildest year in professional wrestling history. MJF was a big story for AEW that I found, obviously, the CM Punk drama and all that. 2023, man, I think it's going to be a really fun year. We're going to see what happens with the CM Punk drama in AEW, and it's the first full year with Triple H in charge of WWE. And I already told you, I got a feeling Royal Rumble and WrestleMania, the first of Triple H's control, there is something that's going to happen. There's going to be a major storyline that takes place at both those events. I think we're going to be in for a wild first quarter of 2023.
Yeah, I agree. You know what I would love to see at some point? I think Tony Khan has said he's open to it. Triple H has kind of said no. I would love, AEW did that pay-per-view with New Japan last year, Forbidden Door. I would love to see AEW and WWE do something like that.
So the interesting, what's so interesting about that, Josh? I actually think, I hate to correct you, but I think you got it a little bit wrong because Tony Khan said he was open to it when Vince was in charge. He said he hasn't been that much open to it since Triple H's been in charge because he feels like Triple H disrespected him because he contacted all those ex-WWE guys and asked them if they wanted to come back while they were still in AEW's contract control. So it sounds like to me another reason why I said I don't like AEW is because I think Tony Khan brags way too much. He thinks, well, it's his product. I get he's going to promote it, but the fact that you think AEW Rampage is going to beat SmackDown, are you fucking kidding me? Get out of here.
No.
So that's another reason why I don't think the guy is likable.
No, I get that. I'm a bigger AEW fan than I am WWE, but I don't dislike WWE or anything like that. I still watch SmackDown and Monday Night Raw as often as I can, and I watch as many of the premium live events as I can. It's just with AEW, I feel like I'm getting more creative storylines, whereas with WWE, it felt like for a large majority of the time, they were just recycling the same storylines over and over and over again. And
after
I just
WrestleMania this year specifically, and I really felt like 2021 or whatever, you could kind of see Vince was losing it a little bit. There was a lot of criticism on Vince saying he was old and out of touch. To an extent, I felt that, but also there was sometimes where I'm like, damn, that man is still a genius. So, I mean, like I told you, this year was absolutely insane, but I cannot wait to see what happens early this year. Like you keep saying, I think it's going to be a really great year. I want to ask you one question.
Go ahead.
Because I don't really know the answer to this, and you already know my take on this.
Mm-hmm.
To me, the main event of night 2 this year should be Roman versus The Rock for the Undisputed Universe Championship. If The Rock's schedule allows it, I know some people don't want the title on the line. Some people don't want Roman to face The Rock at all. But I've already told you that to maximize your product, to get eyeballs on this product, John Cena, Stone Cold, Edge, The Rock. Don't bring back Goldberg. That's the only one that I really don't want. Don't bring back Goldberg at all.
I would
But
say don't bring back Brock Lesnar either.
see, Lesnar and Lashley, I think are going to have another match. I think it's going to be fantastic. I think Brock Lesnar is a much-watched, can't-see talent. I don't care if he only does 7 suplexes. Brock Lesnar can do whatever the hell he wants, including lifting a tractor in the ring at SummerSlam, which I still, as I told you, can't get over that match.
I agree with you. That match was great, but just in general, like I I used to love watching Brock Lesnar in the WWE, but it's just worn off for me. Like it's not that great anymore. I'm like,
and that's where I think WWE and AEW and wrestling in general, like that's different. Because wrestling, we all have our own taste, right? It's not like the NFL or the NBA and MLB where we can all see problems on teams. We all may disagree on this coach needs to be fired or this guy's a bad player, but you can all generally see like what needs to happen, right? They need more of this, they need to do what's that. Wrestling is like you have your own taste. Like I personally would watch Brock Lesnar suplex the guy for 5 hours straight and not get bored. You again are more the creative storyline in ring type wrestler, and I am not. But I think wrestling is just very niche. I think the wrestling community can be funny. I also think it can be very toxic and very interesting to see what happens in 2023.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of interesting stuff that needs to be sorted out in 2023. Like is Sasha Banks all I've heard is Sasha Banks is going to New Japan, but does she eventually like jump ship from New Japan and end up becoming all elite? I think there is still a possibility that type of thing happens.
I will say, I personally am shocked she's not already back in WWE. Like, I thought when Triple H first came back, I thought, boom, they're coming back immediately. Her and Naomi both. And they're definitely needed in some parts of the division. Or, geez, Triple H has done his best to restock the division. But will Sasha Banks be a major star in AEW? Yes. How will she be booked again is another question, because I mentioned I occasionally watch AEW, and Britt Baker's a star, but Soraya Page, formerly obviously, just came back. But AEW again, it's like they bring back these WWE people, they feature them for 2 or 3 months, and then mostly they're off television.
Miro, for example, I'm like, why have we not seen Miro in a while? Like,
that's another guy that I thought, like, could he be back WWE bound? And don't get me wrong, I think there's a lot of guys at Triple H signed back that I'm not loving to come back. I didn't think they should have brought back. There's been a couple, obviously, that have worked. But, it's very interesting. I think the lesson that we did learn this year, though, is when somebody is a free agent, when somebody's on a contract, it used to be like, yeah, they're a free agent, but they're not going anywhere. Like, they're going to re-sign. Like, in wrestling now, if there was a free agency period, there would be a real free agency period, because when guys are free, they're free to go anywhere.
Right. While AEW and WWE are going to be the 2 main factors in that, like, New Japan's certainly going to be a factor. Impact, not so much. I'm surprised, honestly. Like, I know AEW brought in Ring of Honor, which I haven't really liked that. At times, I felt like the Ring of Honor stuff was featured too much on AEW programming. But that point aside, I'm surprised Impact Wrestling hasn't been absorbed by AEW yet. Because, they had that partnership for a while.
Yeah.
And I thought, because I've watched Impact a couple times. It's nothing special, at least in my opinion.
Last time I watched TNA was probably 2012. Bobby Roode, James Storm, Kurt Angle, Sting. Like I said, TNA felt like a legitimate alternative to WWE. It kind of felt like their own thing back in the day. Yeah, they had a lot of ex guys that it just felt like it was its own separate thing, where it feels like AEW is trying to beat WWE and act like they're competition when they're not.
Right, because, yeah.
And that's what killed TNA, by the way. If you remember, they tried to go head-to-head with WWE, and that was the end of it.
I feel like AEW, maybe they're starting to figure it out, because they're starting January 4th when they make their debut in Seattle. they're taking on this new look and stuff like that.
I did hear about that. I'm gonna tune in and see how it looks.
So maybe AEW is trying to kind of separate itself and not go head to head with WWE, which I'm fine with. Yeah. To a certain extent, I will say I'm kind of concerned at how many ex WWE people are in AEW now, because I feel like
Not only that, but they're not doing anything.
right. I mean, yeah, you've got Bryan Danielson. He's feuding with MJF. That's going to eventually lead to a match at Revolution for the championship. You got Chris Jericho. You got Saraya. You got a bunch of other people. I know. But, like, how about Jungle Boy, Jack Perry, Ricky Starks? Britt has already reached that level of being a star. I get it. But, like, Darby Allin, Wardlow, MJF. Okay, maybe not MJF because he's already, like, a mega star. But, you know, Powerhouse Hobbs, guys like that, like the Hangman, you know, they're all AEW originals. Like, and I want to see some of the young people pushed. Like, Jericho's not going to be around too much longer, I don't think. Who knows how much longer Danielson's going to be in WWE? That's what I mean when I say around. I don't mean like they're going to die or anything like that.
No, I get you.
Yeah, I'm not.
And even like at All Out 2021, I thought was a game changer. They bring in obviously Bryan Danielson, Adam Cole, CM Punk's first match back, and I said
Ruby Soho.
Since that night, AEW hasn't felt the same to me. I really thought they were going to carry the momentum, and they never did. Bryan Danielson doesn't seem as big of a deal, in my opinion, than really he was than he debuted. The biggest dynamo, though, that will fall, I believe, will be CM Punk. Now, whether he's back in AEW or not, this is a dream booking scenario for me, just because I would love, we talk about fandom, the internet would die. I think Twitter would actually fall over if at the Royal Rumble CM Punk's music hits.
Oh, God.
Or WrestleMania. Could you imagine? Now, I know CM Punk and Triple H seemingly have more beat than CM Punk and Vince. Like, I don't think it's ever happening.
No.
But in my fantasy booking world, if CM Punk were to show up on WWE television, and I used to love CM Punk. I think the guy's a jerk, but I think he's one of the greatest in-ring talents of all time. I think we can both sort of agree on that.
We agree on both those fronts.
And regardless of what you think about the all-out drama, I really don't know what side to favor or who cares. I think the AEW locker room is more happy that Punk's not there from reading all the reports. It sounds like Punk over-exaggerated a lot of the things. It also sounds like the elite were in the wrong on a lot too. But regardless, there is such thing like Terrell Owens in the NFL, cancer. I think Russell Westbrook in the NBA, cancer. Like, there are some guys in locker rooms that just aren't good fits. I think CM Punk is the guy in wrestling who's like, he's a phenomenal talent. But I think he will be a cancer in whatever locker room he goes to. And again, I think that's what we have to look forward to in 2023 is CM Punk going to wrestle? Or is he just going to sit at home? Because remember, there was that rumor out there that Tony Khan does not want to let him go because he's afraid Punk would show up in WWE, which I think is stupid because I think there's no way he does it. I think Triple H is too smart. I don't think Triple H wants to deal with Punk. But as I said, could you imagine? Like, I literally think at that point, my mind would break.
The internet would be broken for like 3 days.
No, I did. By the way, when Punk was making his return in 2021, I did not think in a million years it would be to AEW. Like, I thought in a way it would be in WWE because Vince always made amends with everybody. It didn't matter. And I thought some time off, he'd go back and be a nice story. I never thought he really wants to go to at that point, it was really still a startup wrestling company if you think about it. They signed some WWE guys, but not huge. I didn't think Jericho was this big signing. Obviously, Cody Rhodes made, his promotion. And I said this, Josh, I don't know if we talked about this that much, but Cody Rhodes leaving AEW too was a huge deal.
Oh, 100%.
And that, to me, by the way, and I'm sorry, I know we're going on for way too long here.
No, you're fine.
But Cody leaving as an EVP of AEW to be just a wrestler in WWE was a more of a sign that I think we knew at the time there were problems in AEW. Because why would you leave up? He's second in command to Tony Khan at freaking AEW. He pretty much built the company. To go back to a company the last time he was there and made him Stardust. Like it didn't make sense. But now, I mean, Cody came back to WWE, made himself a freaking star. Cody was Monday Night Raw. It was so impressive, and I never was a fan of Cody, and now I'm a huge fan of Cody, and can't wait to see him come back. Again, to me,
I couldn't wait to see him come back because I don't really like him. Not even because
that's a fair point. But
not
again,
even because of the AEW stuff. Like I like him as a wrestler, but like his promos just don't do anything for me. So I'm like, yeah, I don't really like him too.
I think one of the best things, and again, not to do WWE's horn again, but one of the best things they do is if a wrestler's been gone for a long time and they come back, you sort of forget what they did in the past because they can be a whole new person. Look at Drew McIntyre, for example. He was gone for 4 years, and now McIntyre, again, one of the biggest stars in the company today.
Yes. With Drew McIntyre, as much as I'm a huge fan of Drew McIntyre, don't get me wrong, but I feel like I want him to go back to being the Scottish psychopath. Like
I'm gonna claymore you in the face.
Like I trust me. Like
heel turn needed.
Probably. Yeah, I think it's time for Drew to go heel. Like, yeah, he's doing a really good job as a babyface. Don't get me wrong. Like, there's nothing wrong with it. But I shouldn't say there's nothing wrong with it. It feels like hasn't been that evolution.
Well,
you know what I mean?
Part of it, in my opinion, has to do with Roman's title reign. And it's a word of knock on Vince for the way Vince booked the Intercontinental and U.S. Championship prior to him leaving, which now it has been restored. But when you have all heel champions right now dominating Roman, Gunther, Theory, like those are your main top champions, it's hard to get a guy like McIntyre behind you or one of those other popular baby faces, because even though you want them to win, deep down there's like a 2% chance they're going to win. So it's hard because it's hard to make a star just out of non-championship feuds. I think Seth Rollins can do it. I think McIntyre and Sheamus had a great rivalry. But I think you have to have great veteran stars that have great chemistry without the championship on the line.
I agree with you. Yeah, it's definitely going to be a babyface who takes the title off of Roman, whether it's Kevin Owens at the Royal Rumble, although that's unlikely, whether that's Cody Rhodes, which I think is what most people want it to be, whether that's Seth Rollins, which is personally what I would like to see happen. But I'm
very interested to see how they get the belt off Roman. Because I personally thought they could have Theory at Clash of the Castle or at SummerSlam, cash in and pin Brock or McIntyre and take one of the titles. That way you protect Roman. But I'm like, I don't think it's going to be The Rock, though. I think the internet would know down, though. Personally, I don't know. That'd be kind of fun to see. I don't really want it to be Cody because I don't think Cody necessarily deserves it after being out for 6 months to come back and just beat Roman. I wouldn't really get that. I think Cody has to be built up a little bit more. I love the idea of Rollins, but I like the idea of them splitting up the championship somehow. In a triple threat, maybe you make it for one of the titles and Roman doesn't get in and you get the WWE Championship back on Raw, or Roman keeps the Universal Championship, then you build up Cody. The other idea I had, and unfortunately is not going to happen now because he's injured, and we all wanted to see this match so bad, it never happened. But no, Randy Orton. Like Randy in 2022 with RK Bro, and I know you're not the biggest fan of Riddle, but we talked about how hot RK Bro was. Like Randy Orton was as hot as he ever was in his career. I wanted Orton versus Reigns so freaking badly, and it's not going to happen now because Orton was hurt. But there's a storyline out there too where like, hey, listen, Randy Orton's close to being a 16-time world champion. John Cena is a 16-time world champion. Like, I wouldn't even hate it if Cena's the one to take the belt off Roman for title number 17.
Sure. Here's my thing with Riddle, just to touch on that. I don't dislike Riddle. It just felt like I just didn't connect with his. I just don't connect with his
He's
bro
better
character.
off in a tag team than he is a single star. I will
Right.
give you that. He has not been as over without Randy Orton. RK Bro getting hurt was the worst thing that ever happened to them.
Oh
Like
yeah.
I don't know what the plans were, if they were going to split or not. I thought they were going to split at last year's WrestleMania. They never did. Like they were so over. I can't make it the case. Randy Orton's almost hotter or as hot as Roman was when he got hurt. Those people who came to that arena, and I speak to this because I went to Raw in Cleveland. We came to that arena to see Randy Orton.
Oh
Like
yeah.
at that point, Randy Orton was as hot as he ever been, and easily you could have made the argument he could have been the one at that point to take the title off Roman. And now we may never see Randy in a wrestling ring again. It's really sad.
Yeah. I did like Riddle in the feud with Seth Rollins because I thought he did a really good job of taking on that aggressive style.
Yes.
And I'm like, and when I saw that, I'm like, that's what I've been waiting for from you, Riddle. Like I'm pretty sure he's been in the UFC. So I'm like, I know you have that aggressive side. I know you have that intensity within you. Like, let me see it. And like his feud with Seth, I'm like, okay, there it is. So and I thought, okay, like
Build
let's
on that, and he never did.
right. I want. It's the same thing with Hangman over in AEW. Like, you know, I don't like Hangman's whole character of I like feel sorry for me and all this and that. Like, tr- like I don't want. I'm not saying like I only want intensity from wrestlers. Like
Yeah.
that's not what I'm saying. But like like Riddle's like lackadaisical character, I just didn't really connect with.
No, I get that.
And like Hangman's like, oh, feel sorry for me and oh, woe is me type thing. Like it just didn't do anything for me. So like during his feud with Adam Cole, where like he actually brought out some animosity and he had an edge to him, not Adam Copeland, but like he had
Yes.
like that's what I liked. And again, I'm not saying every wrestler needs to be that way. Like I get it. But you, do you get what I mean?
Yes. Absolutely, Josh, I do.
Yeah. Trust me, I did like RK Bro. I definitely liked Randy more than Riddle.
For sure. I keep mentioning, man, Randy was white hot. Randy was super over, and it just sucks. It killed all the momentum, the rivalry they have with the Usos. I still think it's one of the match of the year for the tag team titles. I kept thinking there was a chance they could pull some strings in the bloodline and take the titles out the Usos, and they never have.
I think that we all know what's going to happen with the Usos and who's going to take
I
the tag.
know, but now I'm like, and I told you this. Do you really want them to turn on Sammy? Like Sammy is so hot. Do you really want to put him back with KO? Like I don't know how I feel about that. Sammy's just so good as a heel. I don't want him as a face.
So wait, so but that's the thing. Sammy is so over right now. Like every arena is chanting Sammy, Sammy. So
But
let me
him and KO versus the Usos kind of feel like it's not
so
satisfying enough.
so okay. So let me give you a different idea then. What if Sammy is the one to take the titles off?
And that's what I mentioned to you. That would be like if you can't get The Rock. To me, I'm having Sammy win the Rumble.
It would be an interesting storyline. I just as it would be really entertaining to see that. Don't get me wrong. I just don't see a way
My
that
worry
you could
is
sell that in a match with Roman and Sammy.
Here is my worry. Sammy and Kevin take the titles of the users of WrestleMania. Then what?
Exactly.
There's no after the title. Their title reign is going to be pointless. Their whole feud is with the bloodline, right? And so that's why I didn't think the Street Profits had a chance. With the RK Bro thing, they are a legitimate tag team. They could have a tag team right with Alpha Academy and whoever you want to do for the titles. The Kevin and Sammy are not tag team. Like, they're not going to be a tag team for long. They're going to fight. They're going to be a team. They're going to take down the Bloodline. If they did it in a non-title match, sure. Like, that'd be cool. But I don't like the idea of them taking the titles off them.
No, that's fair. I'll give you that one. But as much as I would love to see Sammy do it, I don't think that's. I don't know how you would actually have Sammy beat Roman in a match.
You have Sammy beat Roman clean. You have Sammy beat Roman absolutely clean with the biggest haluva kick you'll ever see.
See, I hear you, but I just don't know how you
a distraction of the Usos with Roman in the corner somehow. Roman goes for a spear, boom in the corner, he misses. Sammy with a haluva kick, bang.
Okay. How about this though? Because Solo Sikoa, if you've noticed, he hasn't all. It doesn't seem like he's fully bought in to everything that Roman is selling.
Ooh, okay.
What if Solo Sikoa turns on the Bloodline and he's the one to take the titles off of Roman?
I think it's more likely to be Jey Uso. What if they circle back around? Because remember, Roman's first feud was with Jey Uso for the Universal Championship.
That, to me, that was the best feud of Roman's title reign.
Now, I'm biased because, as you know, Edge is my favorite wrestler of all time. Roman and Edge, the WrestleMania match that included Daniel Bryan, obviously, and the Money in the Bank was my favorite, I think. Outside of maybe Lesnar and Roman at SummerSlam and McIntyre, Roman at Clash of the Castle, those four to me were my favorite Roman matches. The Jey Uso matches were great, but the no fans thing kind of took away from it a little bit, in my opinion.
I agree.
It was so long ago that it's almost irrelevant because Jay's been with the Bloodline for so long. But they could circle back around Jey Uso, who has said before he don't give a damn what the tribal chief says.
Yeah. My other favorite feud that Roman has had was with Seth when they had their
Rumble match. I didn't like the disqualification ending. That ending for me.
That ending was terrible. No.
I'm mad that they didn't circle. There's some Roman feuds they never circled back to, which I've never. The Sheamus thing. Where's Sheamus been? Sheamus should have got a universal or an undisputed title match. Sheamus is odd too right now.
Sheamus and Drew McIntyre are getting a undisputed tag team.
Yes, they are.
Title match. Wait. Sheamus and Drew McIntyre are a tag team again? What?
Exactly.
That came out of nowhere. But you want to talk about how they don't circle back, and we've just hit the 2-hour mark, so we might wrap things up soon. But anyway, that's what happens when you get two sports guys on a YouTube live stream. We can just keep going and going and going and going.
I said we need to make this an undisputed with commercials because I can't talk for 3 straight hours. But
don't worry, we'll wrap things up shortly. But you talked about it. You had the rope break with the TLC match or whatever with the Demon Finn Balor. Nothing about it.
Oh, the Extreme Rules match. Yeah, nothing about it. I completely forgot about that match. I completely forgot about that match.
Exactly. Nobody remembers. The only reason I bring it up is because you talked about how they don't circle back. And, have they mentioned anything with the whole Seth match since then?
They have teased it. Rollins has always teased going back to it, if you remember.
Right.
He's always the one saying, hey, I want to get back at Roman, which I think they will at some point.
I think, personally, I would not be, let me say it like this. I would not be opposed to them doing The Rock versus Roman at WrestleMania. That would not be my first choice, though. One, because Seth is my favorite wrestler in WWE over anybody else. And two, I think they had such a good feud leading up to the Royal Rumble because they talked about everything with the Shield and, during the entrances, Seth actually used the shield and all that. Leading up to WrestleMania, you can, I talked about how I don't really like the recycling of feuds. I'm not saying use that exact same feud, but you can use bits and pieces of it again.
Yes.
But while still making it a fresh new feud.
Yep. I agree.
Yeah.
I agree totally with that.
Yeah. So I would love to see that would be my first choice is for them to do Seth versus Roman. But I would not
that's my third. Roman Rock, Sammy Roman, Rollins Roman.
I would not be opposed to Roman versus Rock, but it's not my first choice.
Basically, for some reason, I have a feeling though it's going to be Cody. I don't know why. I have this feeling The Rock's not going to be able to do it. Why? I think there's a chance, but I'm getting cold feet.
Hey! What about this? What if they do a triple threat match? You want Sammy versus Roman, right? I want Seth versus Roman. How about Seth
I
versus
don't think
Roman
works.
versus Sammy?
I don't think it works.
Why not?
I think you need an individual story there. I think Rollins and Roman. I mean, if you're going to do a triple threat, see if you can contact Tony Khan and work on One Night Out with Moxley and do the Shield triple threat again. Which, by the way, I thought there was a little bit of a chance Moxley was going to show up at the Royal Rumble last year. If you remember those rumors of the Forbidden Door, I thought maybe he comes out and they do the Shield thing. Never happened.
I would seriously love to see them WWE and AEW do some type of event where like you have like those types of matches. Like you can do Kenny Omega versus Roman Reigns.
They would never do it because there's no benefit to WWE in doing it. All the benefit is with AEW. What benefit does WWE have to do that show? Think about it realistically. Does WWE really want people to get eyes on the AEW product? Not really.
Fair enough. But come on. Like, aren't there matches that you would love to see? Like Roman versus Kenny Omega?
No. There's only one. The triple threat with Roman, Seth, and Ambrose. And Dean Ambrose. Yes, Dean Ambrose, not Jon Moxley.
All right. Well, I think we're going to wrap things up on that note. Thank you to everybody who tunes in after the show.
Josh, this was fun, man. I appreciate it. We talked about a lot of stuff that I was not expecting it all to go this long. So my energy died down. I thought we were only going to go like half an hour. I was flying out of the gate because of it. But yeah, this was fun. Appreciate coming on, man. If you guys want to, you can go over to Brand's World. Check out my New Year's live stream tonight. We'll be live about 10 p.m. Eastern during the college football playoff between Georgia and Ohio State. Very interesting. I think Ohio State has a chance to win that game. That's all I'm going to say about it. I don't want to dive too much into it. I think Ohio State has a chance. I'm not saying they're going to. I think they have a chance. I think Michigan will absolutely roll TCU. I think Michigan's going to be bound to play Georgia or Ohio State in the national championship.
I think Ohio State is absolutely getting dump trucked tonight.
Okay.
41-17, Georgia's going to win.
Well, we'll see who's right on that. As always, make sure to check out my stuff, as I mentioned, Twitter, Brandon_7, @real_B-World. Josh, go ahead, buddy.
All right. So thank you, everybody, who tuned in to the Sports Room Talk Show. As always, I am Unger to the Max. And like I said at the beginning, if you haven't done so, make sure you hit that subscribe button with the skull-crushing finale, courtesy of the Miz. Punch that like button like a UFC fighter, and hit that notification bell with the paradigm shift, courtesy of Jon Moxley. The next time you watch an episode of the Sports Room Talk Show, it will be in 2023.